It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives the dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I am so grateful to be with everyone this evening. Tonight we have a special segment of the Straight No Chaser Show. For those of you who do not know, this is the actual 12th anniversary of my father's dying. And Gabori and I had an inbox conversation about it because he meant that much to me that I want to honor him on his birthday, which is October 21st, and on the anniversary of his death, which is today. Because I didn't know when I was younger, I know now, everybody didn't have a great dad. And I was surprised when I got older and found out that some people didn't even know who their dads were. And it actually has shaped how I view the generation that's coming up now, because most of these young people don't have a relationship with their dads. And I think that's reflective of what we're seeing in the streets, what we're seeing in our school systems, what we're seeing in our society. So because my father was a man, he was not perfect, but he was a heck of a father to me. He was with me until literally his last day. And I don't mean he was just, Rhea, can you give me 50 cents? No, he was a support system. He was a guiding light. He was a fixture. He was my son's father figure. And for that, I cannot be more grateful to God for having given me that father. But today, I am here to not just honor my dad, but to speak with and honor some great dads that I know. So going down the line, I have Liddell. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
I'm trying not to say Jerry, but it's so hard. I have Jerry the second.
Hello.
And I have his dad, Jerry. And I have Gabori.
Hello.
And so what I want us to talk about, because we have different generations here and different circumstances, but I want us to talk about the rewards of fatherhood as well as the pitfalls, because raising, especially now, well, they say more so boys, but the girls are having rough times on some levels too. But I wasn't having a life like a lot of these young people are having now. And even Jerry, about how old are you, if you don't mind?
No, I'm fine. I'm 32.
Okay. Even at 32, you aren't having the life that perhaps a 15-year-old is having now in Chicago. Do you think?
Well, thanks to the man next to me, I'm somewhat insulated to a lot of that. He taught me a lot of things to avoid, but I do have enough exposure to try to stay away from myself. But I do see a lot just because, MTV and BET and stuff.
Is MTV even still on?
It is. It shouldn't be MTV. It should be PTV for People TV, but right. It's there, and it's not the best. A lot of Kardashians on there.
Okay. Enough said. I want to start actually with Gabori, because I know you have a son and a daughter.
Two daughters.
Because I know I see the glamorous one. She's beautiful, and I see the little boy. Okay, so the little girl is also yours too. Mm-hmm. All right. As a dad, what has been the most rewarding thing for your son's interaction with you and your daughter's interaction with you?
Well, to know that it's continuous. I've been there. I saw him birth. I saw everyone.
Please, I have a queasy stomach. Don't please don't go that
I saw
way.
the two youngest. I didn't see the oldest, but we was military family. Me and mom were married for about 8 years, so I saw everybody born for the most part. They lived with me up until I went to war and just going away a couple of times, but to this day, we've always lived together, and I've been in a special situation where my kids actually have lived with me for a long time. So it's just it's so rewarding to see them go through their changes, to see them succeed and fail when they're supposed to succeed and fail, to see them learn and do the same mistakes twice and learn the third time. The transition from childhood on into puberty, and just my daughter's 18 now. Took her to college the other day, about 2 weeks ago. Took her down to school to visit. So I can't even explain how good it feels to know that I had a chance to be there the entire time, of them growing up. And we got 4 more years. I got last one 14, and then they're gonna have to find me somewhere. I say it all the time. They're gonna have to find me. I'll probably be in Japan somewhere.
And they're going to find you.
Oh yeah, they're gonna find me. They're gonna find me or my pockets.
Right. They're going to find you. Because they're going to count on the pockets coming through a wire. They're not worried about the pockets. They're going to actually look for you because you've been there.
Right.
Jerry, the first.
Yes.
Why was it so important to see you have more than Jerry?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Why was it so important to you, even at that time when things were not nearly as rough as they are now, to be there?
Well, I guess the most important thing is to be an example for them, because they're going to have rough times too. To be an example, so they'll see what to do when times get tough. You don't run, you stick it out, you work it out, and glad to say, as far as being rewarded, is that all 3 of them have grasped that. And I've seen them all 3 go through rough times, and I've seen all 3 of them come through it.
Because you have 2 sons and a daughter.
I have 2 sons and a daughter, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and no slight to this one here, but the daughter more so than them. She's had a rough time too, because she's been and I'm sure Black woman in this society, she's got a lot of things that she has to overcome, especially when she's bettering herself, educating herself, and trying to move forward in things. There are a lot of obstacles that they have to overcome that Black men don't. They're different. They're different. Yeah. And being a father, you're not always in tune with that. She had a good mother, and has a good mother.
Still does.
I was going to say, still does.
I was about to say, make sure you rest.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Still does, but not being able to, to have any input on that. But still, watching them overcome, following through like both their mother and I did when we had rough times. That's why it was important.
Now I'm gonna come back to you, Jerry, second, because I have to ask you something a little bit different.
Okay.
Ron,
Yeah.
I see your involvement with your baby.
Yes, my one and only son.
And I'm like, it's shocking because like I see Gabori at the workout and his son and daughters out there working. I'm like, oh, I'm glad my father would only take me to the basketball court. I didn't have to play. But why are you so involved? Because let me say this before you answer. I've heard people accuse other parents of being quote unquote too involved in their children's lives. And I was again shocked because I thought that we were supposed to know what they were doing and we're supposed to be involved. So why are you so involved?
Yeah, I think you're talking about what they refer to as those helicopter parents, the ones that are just hovering around every event at the school, at the playground, in the lunchroom almost, But my situation is kind of unique, just like my son is kind of unique. I guess the most motivating factor for me trying to involve him so much in so many different things is that I took on the responsibility of raising him as a single parent. My son was actually born in China, and myself and his mom, we decided that we wanted him to have a Western education. We felt that a Western education would be a bit more well-rounded and would prepare him for any place in the world that he'd like to go, versus a strictly Chinese education would prepare him well for China, but it wouldn't necessarily prepare him well for the United States or any other country. So taking on that responsibility of bringing him here alone, and knowing that what he would have to deal with as a minority. He's bicultural. His mom is Chinese, but he's bicultural. But he would have a certain an additional set of things that he would have to overcome. So I knew that it would be incumbent upon me taking that responsibility to go to be as deeply involved in his life as possible, so that I can guide him guide him in the direction that I see is best for him, and share the experiences that I've had with him. I lived in China for nearly 10 years, so I can understand the Eastern culture. And then growing up here in the United States, I can understand the Western culture. So my unique perspective he needs me. And frankly, I need him. He's been a blessing for me. So I guess all that to say is that I feel that it's very important, because I took that responsibility to raise him alone, that I follow through on it each and every day in every way possible.
Okay. Now, Jerry the second, you're a father, but you're sitting here as the son also.
Yep.
What do you recall was the most important thing that your father taught you?
He made it clear early on that he is not my friend. He is my father. We have a very friendly relationship, but there's definitely a boundary, and without going into too much detail, I knew.
Don't say anything that's gonna have the police knocking on
exactly.
the door.
I knew very early on not to cross the line, but I definitely appreciate that in hindsight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with your relationship with your son, do you see anything that you're doing with him that your father did with you?
Oh, absolutely, and he sees it too. I'm nice. I love. I hug. I kiss. Both my sons. But when the hammer needs to come down, well, not the hammer. Not the hammer.
Oh my goodness. You're worried, like, dude, you're talking yourself to a hole.
Don't want to say the hammer, but when I need to parent, there's not an issue. And both my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old, they both understand, like, Dad's, hey, I need to straighten up really quickly. So it's I love it. It's great.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit on the other side of the coin. Looking at the society that we're in now, there are a lot of challenges. Some of them are based on economics. Some of them are based on race. Some of them are based on other people's biases that you may not even perceive. What, as a dad, have you seen your children go through that's a challenge that you want to jump in and probably choke somebody to death, but you want them to learn a life lesson from and maybe step back and handle it a little differently?
Well, for me, it's basically the peer pressure. When you're dealing with teenagers and you never know who's influencing them, who's in their household. So when it comes to someone trying to date my daughter, and it's not going well, I'm trying to get to the bottom of that, but I got a parent who really can care less.
Yes.
My son who's got this kid influencing him to try to steal, and then you get caught and you want to beat him down for it, but he's not that kid, so you're not really worried about him stealing as much as you're worried about him being influenced by the person. And then even down to, like, my daughter, my youngest daughter, she's a ball player.
Yes.
And all the little girls that try to influence her to act like the little guys. I want my little girl.
I got a son.
I got a son. She got a brother. He got a sister, not a brother. So those things that I have to sit back and kind of monitor, but I can't really put my hands on them as much as I would like to, because they are learning processes that they're gonna have to go through. And if I don't allow them to go through them, then I'm impeding the progress. And if I do that, then no lesson is learned. So,
Not only that, a lot of times as parents, when we intercede too early, you push them more into what you're trying to turn them away from.
Yeah.
Now, Ra, because your baby, I don't know why I call, well, he's the youngest one outside of your children, but
Yeah, he's 7.
because he's bicultural,
Right. Yeah.
do you feel that in this society he's going to face some unique challenges by being both Black and Chinese?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's already experiencing. He goes to a school that's predominantly African American. When I was deciding what school I wanted him to go to, I didn't want. I was thinking about sending him maybe to a private school that was predominantly, white, but I didn't want him to be, the one, the minority, So I wanted him to have his education, his environment reflective of his home life, and that being the case, he's still the one, just on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Which offers, like you said, its own sets of challenges in terms of how he's perceived and what his expectations are. The whole thing that the Asians are super intelligent, and it just so happens, and he is really intelligent, but it's not simply genetic based. I mean, every day,
work with him.
Yes, every day after he gets home, we put in about a half an hour of reading. We practice his Chinese lessons with him, and on weekends he does enrichment courses at Northwest University. So the stereotype, he's interestingly enough, this is the deal. He doesn't know he's not a brother. So, that hasn't dawned on him yet. So he's whipping and he's nay-naying and hitting the quan, and and he's, Dad wasn't that great with dance in the first place, but his mom, bless her soul, she was not a dancer at all, and bless my son, he's not the
well, he's trying,
but he's absolutely trying.
And he's having a good time.
He's having a great time. He does not let anything get in the way of him, getting it in with his classmates and, and things of that nature. So he's adjusted. He doesn't know yet. The big reveal has yet to, so I'm still, figuring out how that's going to work out when it comes to it.
And that's something I really want to think about for you or with you, because when we have now a more biracial society, and you are in some situations forced to choose one or the other by the outside forces, versus accepting all of what you are,
right?
It gets to be a little hectic, and that's a bag that everybody doesn't have to carry.
You're absolutely right. I mean, even now, what I try to do in order to balance that, his home life, and try to get him exposed to different cultures. On weekends, I take him to Chinatown, and we go to different Chinese restaurants. He takes Chinese lessons at University of Chicago in Chinese with all Chinese students.
So it's Chinese immersion.
Yes, completely Chinese immersion. The teacher only speaks Chinese in the classroom. So I tried to get him exposed to all the different, and that's one of the great things about this country. We do that. If you like, you can explore so many different cultures and ethnicities right here if you choose to do so. So I try to do those things to expose him to different cultures and different activities, to kind of give him the opportunity to see that it's not simply Black. I mean, the South Side is synonymous with Black. The North Side is synonymous with white. So I try to do everything for him to give him a view of the world as it actually exists, as opposed to where we are in terms of a region.
Okay, Jerry the second, when you look at your childhood with Jerry and your younger children, do you see some pitfalls that they may have to face that you perhaps did not?
Not so much. I grew up in Beverly, just like they are now. So we're not necessarily the one, but we're the one of the few. So, in February in school, there wasn't any talk of Black History Month. you know, because there's only a handful of them in the school.
Oh,
So
I don't know how Jerry handled it.
he didn't. He didn't. You see how he's looking. He didn't know. He didn't know, and that was kind of on purpose. But
right, you should have thought about that when you said that on air.
But I mean that you know, not to say, you know, that there are other views, but I just wish there was more inclusion just in that regard. You know, luckily I was able to spend a lot of time with my maternal grandmother. You know, in a lot different. So I had, you know, I could, you know, be on 71st Street on the weekends, and then you know, I definitely have a lot to attribute to my upbringing for that. So I can fit in wherever I need to be. So I just want to make sure that, you know, my children, you know, just not only because they're light, you know, they know that not only they belong, but they're the same and different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because we're all the same and different.
Right.
Now, when we come back, we're going to have our money moment by H. Cortez, and then we're going to talk a little bit about fatherlessness and its impact, and how what you all do means so much more than most people think. On the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio station.
My Straight No Chaser family. It's your boy H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's money moment. First of all, let me say I am honored and see it as a privilege to be able to share with you on this very special edition of Straight No Chaser as Rhea Ray celebrates the legacy of her late father. I lost my father at age 11, so I can imagine the hurt that one has to overcome from losing a parent that they've grown older and into adulthood with. But that brings me to what I want to talk to you guys tonight about. And it's not just about money and wealth, but I want you guys to start thinking about the legacy that you're leaving behind. All right. Two types of legacy that I'm talking about specifically as it relates to me. And yes, I'm talking about the legacy of financial wealth that you will be able to leave behind to your children. What are you doing to make sure future generations have a solid foundation to stand on financially? All right. The other legacy that I want you to think about, this also includes finances, but the financial education that you're pouring into your children. I want you to think about this and think about it carefully. If your children manage their money, their time, and their other resources in the same way that you do, will they be better off when they get to your age? That's something that I had to wrestle with. And that's the primary reason that I made the changes that I did in my financial life. So I want you to think about the legacy that you're leaving behind. But in addition to the legacy of wealth that you'll leave behind, I want you to think about the financial education that you're leaving behind to your children, so that when you pass down the wealth, they will know exactly what to do with that. In addition to that, think about the character traits that you are instilling in your children. That's also a part of the legacy that you're going to be leaving behind. Think about those whose lives you were able to touch and impact in a special way. That's also part of the legacy that you're going to leave behind. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. That was on my heart when I listened to Ria's promo about what the show topic was going to be tonight. So hopefully you take something from that message and you want to implement it into your life. If you're serious about building a financial legacy for yourself, I want you to connect with me on my Facebook fan page, Financial Health Mentor. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with the lovely Ria Ray as your host. I'm your boy H. Cortez, Financial Health Mentor to the working class. And until I talk to you in next week's video or next week's Money Moment, get your money up. Peace.
And that was H. Cortez, and I appreciate customizing his message tonight for tonight's show. And we are back discussing fatherhood, the ups and the downs. And we had a brief conversation while we were off air that I want Gabori to speak on, because I was saying that I did not know, with the exception of one young lady who didn't have a father growing up, and we assumed that her mother was widowed. Because everyone, even the drunk, abusive ones, were still there. You know, they get drunk and fight, but they go sleep on the couch in their house. And so, right. You know, and it was only one. I thought he was like a total maniac until I got older, saw a few more. But Gabori was saying he was raised in a different set of circumstances. And I wonder if, once you elaborate on those circumstances, if that's why it's so important to you to be a father.
Well, totally, because I was raised without my dad for the most part. He was in the shadows, you know, he was in and out. He was, you know, he didn't do what he was supposed to, but he made a good son, you know, because he never anything. I had no reason to really disrespect the parents for not doing their job. So that helped. I know that helped them out a little bit, but growing up, I didn't see the parents and like I was like away from the home, like, you know, a lot of people had those friends nowadays where it's just the mom, strictly just the mom. I was in that transitional period to where the dads were still around. They might have been drunk. They might have had no type of impact as far as, you know,
show them how to hammer,
yeah.
nail and nail. But they were there.
They were there. They were on the couch to say, "Boy, sit your ass down." You know, even if it was some drunk comment, you saw a figure. You know, even if you just saw a figure. But I also was a part of that '80s crack, alcohol. You know, that whole
wild life.
Yeah.
That new life.
Yeah. So I saw the transition. You know, I had one parent. I started to see my friends with just one parent. I started to see the whole neighborhood where you go over their houses and you see just the mom. The dad's either in jail or he cracked out. They weren't dying yet. We kind of ushered in
the death sentence.
Basically the death sentence. You know, early '90s.
Till now.
But yeah, I was in the middle of it. But it makes me feel that is just so important for me to be around. And I had kids for a reason. You know, I had kids just to watch them from a distance. You know, I never wanted to be that guy. I was in the military. I was all over the place. I could not be the one having kids in California, but I'm from Chicago. So my kid lives in California, you know. So I thank God for that one. You know, I had the ones no wedlocks, so you could actually be there, and that was my plan from day one. I thank God for that. Yeah.
Now, Jerry the second, because you're similar to Gabori in that you're in a different transitional phase as far as your age. What do you think you're going to have to look for a little more closely, or a little more than your father? It's not in your home.
You know, with social media and just the thing, home is almost as dangerous as the streets because you know, that's where all the foolishness begins. Glorification of foolishness on the iPad and on the iPhone, and they go outside and think that's real life. So just kind of monitoring that and making sure that they're informed. Like, hey, this is not real. This is not what you're gonna do, or else you'll have to answer to me and Pawpaw. But,
oh Lord, poor baby.
But yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm fortunate that, you know, my friends and I, we all had our fathers around. You know, I have a relationship with all my friends' fathers, and they can all tell you how crazy my father is. So just sure I keep people like that around me. So, you know, a men like that around me more specifically, so that they know, you know, their village is strong too with their uncles.
Yeah.
Now, Jerry, the senior Jerry,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at your grandsons and their reality compared to your son and your sons and your daughter's reality, do you see any great differences?
Great difference. Great difference. I mean, as far as the environment that they're growing up in, such a big difference. So many dangers, and I'm not just talking about violence. So many influences that have to be, they have to be protected from. So many influences they have to be informed about that I didn't necessarily have to do the same with, you know, Jerry and his brother and sister, or my parents had to do with me. You know, it seems like it's increasing as you know,
As each generation
each generation, the dangers are increasing, and the need for parenting is increasing with it. You know, and that's about it. You know, one of the things I was thinking about something he was saying earlier, and one of the biggest challenges in being a parent is knowing when to step back. Knowing when to step back.
Yes.
Knowing when to step back and letting them make decisions. And
sometimes
the only way,
let them fall.
yeah, and you know, and I guess one thing my father told me wasn't until I was a grown man. He says the only time you can feel comfortable, there's no right time to do it. The only time you can feel comfortable about doing that is that when you've poured all what you can into them and say, okay, it's on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Gabori and Ron, I want you to speak on something a little bit differently, because you all have the experience of having lived somewhere other than the United States.
Mhm.
When you look at other cultures, which you were more so in Japan?
No, I was in the Middle East.
You were in the Middle East, okay. And you were in China.
And I was in China, correct. Yeah.
When you all look at those two cultures compared to the culture that you know here, what do you see that's different as far as the environment itself in general? And then if you have any idea about the child rearing practices there, what were different?
Well, as far as you know, living in China, they something that isn't as prevalent here as I would have liked to have seen is that in China they're all about um, family fealty. They're all about, you know, making sure that the family unit comes first and foremost under each and every circumstance. I don't see that cohesion here in the United States. There's a lot of, you know, and part of that is because in China for such a long time they were only allowed to have they had a so-called one-child policy, so they can only have one child. So the family unit was small. So you had to stick together because your family is the only person that you had to depend on. And I guess maybe here in Western culture, since we since we do have larger families, it's not so important to always have each other's back, at least in comparison to the way it is in China. So one of the biggest differences is that those are very, very tightly knit families in China, whereas ours is just kind of, you know, it's it's not a do or die situation, whereas in China, it's absolutely do or die for any of your relatives. So that's one of the biggest differences that I've seen here.
Well, if I'm thinking about Middle Eastern culture, it's so it's almost like Western culture has provided us the choice to do certain things, even though we live in a biblical society also, but we've been provided a choice to go, a choice to stay. When you go over there and you see man, woman, child, children, they're almost like animals. They do exactly what they supposed to do with a family. When you see the lion, when you see the father lion, the mother lion, the aunts, all the way down to the cubs, they're all together until it's time for them to fall apart. Until it's time for them to
the cubs get big and move
exactly.
on.
So when you see that culture, you see exactly what a family should look like, and the process they go through in bringing everybody up to speed, basically raising an adult. It happens when they feel it's supposed to happen, not when someone's giving them the choice to just run off. You getting killed. That's the only way you leaving. And over here, just like the West and just like everything in the West, you got a choice, and you cool with having a choice. They're not cool with having a choice.
And just to kind of piggyback on what he's saying, a conversation that I often had when I was in China is one of the comparisons between the East and the West was that the China, it has its safety. There are no guns, very low crime. Whereas in the United States, we have freedom. And so that's the trade-off, so to speak. We have freedom to make choices here, and that allows us to make
bad choices.
Bad choices. Yeah, right. So in China, they have their safety, but they don't have as much freedom as we have. Whereas we have a great deal of freedom, but what we do with that freedom, how we choose to use it, unfortunately, isn't always in a positive way, which we see play out with the violence, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to say this, and for the people that get angry, I'm okay with that. I'm always okay with it.
Yeah, it's good.
I every Father's Day get blazing angry when I see my mom was my dad Father's Day cards. And when I'm talking about blazing, I'm talking about hair and my own son came to me and said, "You are my mother and my father." I said, "I've never been your father.
Right.
And I never will be your father."
Right.
You have a father. You may not have the best relationship with him, and I'm not even going to get all off into those particulars with you because you know what they are. But you have a father.
Right.
I'm not saying that women cannot raise decent people, because they can. I am saying, and you can put money in the bank on what I'm going to say, that a woman by herself, with no other male assistance, not necessarily a father, but an uncle or a mentor or somebody, cannot raise a man, because you cannot raise something that you are not.
Right.
Now, I can teach you rudimentary math, but algebra anymore, because I don't remember it. How am I going to even attempt to teach you something that I never was?
Yeah.
Which was a man. A father is a man.
Yeah.
I've looked at videos on Facebook that have made me want to unfriend people, where they have these young children, these young boys, and they're wearing their mama's heels, and they're calling this effeminization. And I want to scream the roof off of wherever I am, because go on, boy, and I'm like, you saying. So I'm looking at, I work at domestic violence court, and younger male population, but you have testosterone, but you also have what I call, quote, female emotion side. A testosterone-based man, young man, with dramatic emotion, but they by a female dominant household, you get a trigger pull.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's gonna be somebody texting me, whatever tonight.
That's okay.
I'm okay with that, because I want you to think about what I'm saying. upset. As men, you all handle things differently than we do. But women that tend to get upset tend to go all out. So if I'm going all out, but I also have the testosterone, that's a bad outcome. And I really want us to think about this. This is not we are trying to save our children issue. And I don't know if you all agree with me or not, but I'm just putting it out there as men. Do you?
Absolutely.
Okay. I hear women arguing this point all the time against them. Like, no, I think you all just personally, yet again, showing the emotion versus looking at what I'm really telling you. Between the effeminization of some young men to the literal, almost bestiality level of others because of the anger and the emotion. It's not only the misunderstanding created, is a cauldron of hell for our children.
That's true. Yeah.
And as you all are here today, and I'm so thankful, it's so important for us to understand before you even be sure that even if you may not be able to make it with that guy in a relationship, that you all can be decent enough to be co-parents. That this gentleman even wants to be a parent. Because there may be a time where you have to call on him when that child is 6'4" and 250 standing over you. And depending on what his relationship is with his father, either the father's not coming or the son's not going to respond. And that's important. We're to the point now that we have 12-year-old killers out here.
Right.
Restaurant that we were talking about this earlier on 79th Street called Chirac.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I understand the young man wants to be an entrepreneur, but he's been an entrepreneur glorifying a term
trying to get away
that has been about the genocide of his generation.
Exactly.
And I'm willing to bet you there's no black man in his ear, not a real one, saying that this is okay.
Right.
What do we have to do as parents, both mothers and fathers, to make this situation for all of us better? Because you cannot anymore look at that, oh, that's Nene and them's kids. Because guess what? Nene and them's kids are going to be at your house in a minute.
Your kids.
Right. So you can't get away. What do you feel that we have to do to make this better? And what in particular can you all do to bring this back at least a couple of generations? Can we get back at least a couple?
We don't have to necessarily raise somebody else's children, but we have to be examples.
Absolutely.
We have to be examples. And far too few black men are examples. And I don't care what community you go into. We have far too few of us are examples. And when I say being examples of what a man is, of what a father is, he had friends that didn't have fathers, a couple, not many, but they knew what fathers were because of his friends, other fathers in the group, right? So now that they are his age and are fathers, they are performing as fathers. So we have to be examples. There are sometimes we have to step in and give fatherly advice, not necessarily be a father, but we have to say advice. When it can be today, that's a dangerous thing. There are killers out here, people who, young fellas will do that. And that's
about all the opportunity that we can to model, for them, mentor. What I do is I'm a Liddell Swoop alum, so each year I go in and I try to speak during Career Day to motivate some of these students that they have a Chinese language program at Liddell High School. So I go there and I try to encourage them to not simply look at the language as something I've got to do in order to graduate, right? But it actually has it's applicable in life. Like I was an educator in China for almost a decade.
Okay.
So by modeling and mentoring and setting examples, whether it's we have family services organizations. For example, Phalanx Family Services is out there on 115th Street. They do a wonderful job.
Yes.
So even if it's just volunteering, going in there just for a day to talk with some of these cats, let them see you in a suit and a tie. Just the visual of it alone,
Yes.
not on the television, but actually right there in person. It may just be, it's not going to be 100. If it's 100 cats, that's the problem. We're not going to be on board with
Right.
it. But, there may be one that just needed to see it. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So, opportunity. Those are some of the opportunities that I think that we can take,
Yeah, I think he really hit it on the head. Modeling, me being younger, I just try to be, as visible as possible with not necessarily my parenting. There are a lot of, young men in my age group that, their parents to post. I'm more than a father than a Sunday in June. Every day. I wake up, I make breakfast for my children every day. I love them, I hug them, I kiss them, and everybody knows that I'm not ashamed to do that. And anybody that knows me, anybody that sees me knows, my involvement as a parent. So, and kind of, not everybody is receptive to that when you're trying to tell them what to do. But if we can show them that it is okay, that it does happen, they'll catch on. It's kind of like, almost a language immersion. If one person sees it, you'll get the domino effect, and, good things will happen.
Gabori.
And I would say my favorite word is to represent.
Absolutely.
I mean, you gotta represent. If you're a parent, you're a man, and you're those things that we claim that we are. You represent those things. If I'm a parent, in some way, I'm every child's parent. I might not interact with every child, but parent. If in some way
see a man,
he's gonna right, and that's the next thing I was gonna say. He's gonna see a man in me because that's all I know how to be.
Exactly.
Good and bad. I know how to be a man.
Okay.
So I'm gonna represent manhood, and if that looks great to him, hopefully he gets something from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the main thing. Represent who you are.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to ask you all one question, and then we're going to close out. I have a friend, Fred O'Neill.
Oh, yeah, Fred. Yeah. Oh, I
And-
just saw Fred
Yes, my friend
at the
Fred.
Cubs game. Was it Friday or Saturday?
Okay. Fred last year got on Facebook, and I love Fred. Fred is a dear friend of mine.
Swoop.
And he said, for all of you men that I'm paraphrasing, that have opted to not raise your children, you cannot be a friend of mine.
Wow. Yeah.
He said, because I cannot, and I'm paraphrasing you, Fred, don't be mad. I can't remember word for word, it's been a year. I cannot be a friend to someone who doesn't care enough to raise their own child. And I have to give the utmost respect to that, because too many times in a bunch of situations, we see someone behaving in a way that we know is wrong. And but that's just how she or he is. There's a point where you have to say, I have to stand up and stand for something.
True. Yeah.
And for me, this is one of those things that at this point, you either on the black or the white side.
Right.
There is no gray here. Either you manning
All
up
in, all
or
out.
you all the way out.
Yeah. Right.
So I have to say, if you are a man who raises your children and you associate with men that kind of iffy on that, be the mentor as long as you can. And when you see that they just hardcore don't want to do it, it may be time to say, you have to take a part in the ways. Because you show people better than you tell them. Once I've given you the chance to come on and get this right, because I don't want to be a part of your demise. I don't want it on my book of life saying I sat back and watched you act a fool and do nothing. So at a point you have to kind of say, yeah, I gotta let you ride out on that.
Yeah.
So before we close, I want all of you to say one thing that out of your life that you want your children to take from you. One thing out of your life that you want your children to say, my father taught me that well. And I'm going to live by that one rule if I don't live by anything else.
Perseverance.
Keep
That's it.
standing.
Yeah.
Perseverance. That's it.
And he hit it on the head, and you know, I'm lucky because my dad's here to answer the question for me. But, you know, I've seen a lot of I've seen everything that my dad's gone through since, you know, May of '83. So perseverance is a very accurate word, and I don't even want to call them, you know, pitfalls or trials or tribulations, because, you know, again, I'm blessed to have the life that I do have, right? And I've been able to get through it, and I'm still standing here today, and I'm doing fairly well, and you know, thanks.
Hallelujah, Jerry. Gabori, one thing.
To live, to understand that living is a verb. It can't be done in place. It's got to be done with the direction in which your limbs point, your toes point forward. When you raise your hand, it points either upward or outward. You know, you got to move, and that's the only way you can live. You cannot live in place.
And Ron.
Make your own decisions. You know, in our world today, there are a lot of different dynamics going on where someone is trying to control your thought processes, what you think, what you do, how you go about doing it. Make sure you get your education and make your own decisions, not based upon images or religious doctrines or cultural imperatives, but what's best for you and things that you've reasoned out on your own, not based upon any other person's philosophy, but yours based on your own reality.
And with that, I thank you, gentlemen, for being on this special segment of the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio station.
Thanks.
And the lesson my father taught me that I carry with me is my tagline: dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris, and I'll see you soon. Be safe, everyone.
It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.